Hello and welcome to Eco Girl in a Modern World. My name is Shelley and my channel is dedicated to talking about ways to be more environmentally friendly in a modern context. I really debated about what the subject of this video is going to be, but I went ahead and decided to make it spring fashion trends. I think that's kind of a lighter subject. It's one that a lot of people like to watch on this channel, and I think with a lot of current events in the United States right now, there is very high tensions, and this will actually come up a little bit in this video, so be prepared. But that this might be a nice kind of distraction, or a nice, at least a little breather from world events. But just know that some of the politics going on is going to be peppered. I do not mean to air my views on my channel, but I do think it's serious what's going on in the world, especially in the United States, and it is going to impact what we're talking about, which is commerce and purchasing and fashion. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Now, the first thing that we're going to have to talk about is that, as always on my channel, when I give you fashion advice, I always expect that we follow our eco rules when we do it. If you do buy something new, that you buy it with the expectation of wearing it 30 times, that you look at the tag and see if it was ethically made, that if the workshops that made the garment are sourced from an ethical supply chain, which is very difficult to do. Also, please look for natural fibers like cotton, linen, hemp, silk, and wool. Not only do those are more quality fabrics, but they tend to last you longer and they do biodegrade. Materials like polyester, especially the ones that are very cheaply made, those can have very harmful dyes and chemicals in it. It also doesn't hold up as well. It also, when you wash polyester or acrylic's a really bad one, little microplastics break off and get into our water supply, and it is very difficult to get them back out. So the best way to go is not to buy anything that's made of those materials, and if you do decide to buy polyester, that you buy it secondhand. Now, where this plays into some politics that are going on is that there was an act for parcels mailed from overseas, particularly China, that was put into place shortly after the Second World War. And what it did is it said that it would be very inexpensive for parcels that are being purchased for personal use, when they're mailed, when they're shipped. There is no duty that has to be paid on them. So a duty is kind of like a tariff, and what it says is, it says, okay, since the 1940s, the United States was trying to, encourage, free trade and more, better partnerships, with commerce with, other nations. So we allowed them for a very long time to ship things very cheaply. And that impacts, like you see today, in a modern context, that is a lot of what you buy. And especially in the last couple years, it would be everything that's from Shein, everything that's from Temu, anything, if you go on Amazon or if you go on even eBay. If there, a lot of the drop ship companies, you place the order, but a company in China makes the garment and then ships it to you. Not only is that a lot of carbon to go over the pond, but that also makes it easier for other countries to get our buying dollar because it's not made here. Now, if you've watched this channel for a long time, you know that I've encouraged that we phase that out, because we don't want to be buying all our clothes from Shein or Temu. But the problem is that we don't really have the infrastructure to make those garments here. Plus, we already have like an overabundance of clothes. And believe me, this video is about fashion, and I'm a Libra woman. I love cool clothes, but we do overproduce, and it's using resources that we don't have a lot of. Polyester is petroleum. It uses gas to make the fabric, and it's using up materials and just ending up in landfills when you don't wear it. So what's long story short, what's happening is that there just a couple days ago, the current administration and the executive office right now has put a pause on any incoming parcels. And again, this is just for personal use. This is not the shipments that businesses get, like Walmart, Target. They go under a different shipping kind of channel. We're talking about small individual purchase things like Shein, Temu. And what's happening is the U.S. Postal Service is, required to hold those parcels. So if you've ordered something in the last couple weeks, and sometimes it does take up to 3 weeks to get from overseas, you probably haven't seen it delivered. I don't order a whole lot of dropship stuff, but I did order a t-shirt and it has not arrived yet. So I'm assuming it's being held at a post office right now. The other thing that's a little bit questionable is that the current headmaster, the person who's in charge of the U.S. Postal Service, his name is Louis DeJoy. DeJoy has a personal investment in private storage areas, so that's kind of convenient, because what's going to happen if you have a backlog of parcels that you can't deliver, you're going to need to store them. And that is likely going to be U.S. tax dollars that are going to be given to somebody to do that. In addition, it's going to probably really take off Gen Z, because, they like to buy cheap, fast fashion clothing from those originators. And the fact that we just argued about, turning off TikTok too, is probably not garnering a whole lot of appreciation from that generation. So, but long story short, you probably want to be on the lookout for that. I mean, it serves my purpose, because I always encourage you to buy secondhand. Look on eBay, look on Poshmark, look on Mercari, ThreadUp. All of these places, look to fulfill these trends with stuff that's already in creation, because when you buy secondhand, and go to your thrift store, when you buy secondhand, you're keeping it out of a landfill, and you're ensuring that it gets a second or third, maybe fifth life. The other thing is, if you do buy something new, buy it with the expectation of wearing it at least 30 times or more. Again, trends come and go, and we're going to be talking about that a lot in this video, but you don't want anything that's so trendy that in 6 weeks is going to be so out of style. And when you donate to thrift stores, only about 20% of what's actually donated gets resold. So there's a lot of waste, a lot of landfill waste that comes from that. And then, of course, you're in the next couple weeks, you're probably not going to be able to buy things internationally very easily from drop shipping companies that are in China. Plus, China may be, and this is up in the air, may be imposing anywhere from 10 to 15% tariffs on the U.S. starting tomorrow, February 10th. So it's all hit or miss right now. It's very disconcerting, but this is the world that we live in. And if you don't like it, call your representative, call your congressman if you live in the United States, and tell them what you think of all this going on. But as I go through the trends, just know what I'm advocating for is that you look secondhand, you look online. I fulfill all of these fashion trends using that aesthetic. I do realize that I'm wearing probably the same color t-shirt, sweatshirt that you've seen before. I promise you, every day when I dress up, I really do dress up for work. And I fulfill all of my pieces following my eco rules. But so we're going to go ahead and get started. So some of the fashion trends that we're seeing for spring, summer, BoHo 2.0, Bohemian, that is definitely coming back into fashion. That it's, flowy tops, more baggy jeans. Like I mentioned before, it's almost like kind of Coachella kind of themed, with a little bit of a cross of Western. We're going to talk bolero hats again in a minute, but yes, a lot of the theme of more flowy garments, also a lot of pendant necklaces, and more free-flowing and kind of hobo bags. In a bridge to that, there's been kind of a merge together called Coastal Prep. Coastal Prep is really kind of like, I think it's Coastal Grandmother crossed with preppy. I'm seeing on the runways, there's a lot of stripes, like stripes in it, either vertical or horizontal. I've talked before in both my mermaid core video and my beach visits video, I had like a blue dress that's kind of pinstriped like that. That's kind of the theme. Also Chanel, the kind of, you know, the nautical kind of horizontal stripes. That's very classy. And from what I understand, the House of Chanel has gotten a new creative director, so again, it's very kind of upscale. It is kind of ladies at lunch meets, you know, preppy meets coastal grandmother, but it's a very polished and more kind of seaside nautical beach kind of theme, in particularly with stripes. So expect to see that. And again, you know, I can get a lot of wear out of the striped dress I already have. I have a couple of, you know, horizontal striped shirts that I have bought secondhand that are very high quality. You can very easily find that stuff, you know, find those pieces secondhand or even at a thrift store. The next one that we're going to talk about, and this one is going to be a little bit touchy, is that we're about a month out from the inauguration, and there is going to be a lot of there's still a lot of ripple effect from the outfits that we saw during the inauguration. You know how I had mentioned a couple videos ago, I think it was in the fall fashion video, I talked about bolero hats. I did notice that the new second term First Lady Melania wore a very bolero hat. And guys, I'm not knocking on anyone, but I'm gonna post two videos from YouTube down in the description box below that was very informative. The memes, I you know, it's like I talked about, you know, bolero hats being very Zorro looking, and I love Zorro. It's very Southwestern, but Melania wore this hat that really garnered a lot of attention. It set off a million memes, and she looked very elegant. I'm not saying she didn't look elegant, but one of the videos I'm going to post below talks about what's going on, is that it looks like all of the attendees were really trying to look like royalty. And you can see that with Melania's navy blue suit and the hat. She was really emulating, kind of channeling Kate Middleton. But the irony is that one of the, you know, Kate Middleton, by all means, the royals have elegant style. But one of the videos I'm going to post below, the reason that royals dress so particularly is because fashion communicates. Fashion has a message, right? The way you dress really sends a message. And what I'm kind of seeing is that everybody, you know, a few of the attendees, like DeSantis's wife, was really doing kind of like a 1960s Jackie Onassis kind of look, and that's going to come up in the video below too. But it kind of fell flat in the way that they were going for, because we talk a lot on this channel about like cosplaying. If you're not very cognizant of the message you're trying to send, and that if the style is not reflecting your personality, it is going to come across looking like a costume. Also, if all of the elements are just Jackie O, that's not going to come across very well either. And again, you know, going back to Melania, I think she was channeling Kate Middleton, but the irony is that the outfit that looked similar with Kate Middleton was for National Remembrance Day, and what that is in the UK is that's the day remembering the fallen. It's almost like Memorial Day. It's very similar to Memorial Day. So it's kind of a sad day, and you'll notice that Kate Middleton wears poppy flowers, which is the sign. It's to honor the fallen. And so it's almost kind of like a funeral outfit. I'm not sure I don't know if Melania meant it that way. The other thing is there was a lot of controversy with what Ivanka wore, and I'll let you look at the two videos. Again, I'm not trying to get controversial with it, but the video that talks about the attendees trying to emulate royalty was very informative, just because, again, it's you know, you're trying to emulate, you're trying to look like, you know, not just political leaders, you're trying to look like monarchy. And that doesn't go unnoticed. That sends a very clear message. But those two videos are very entertaining. Actually, in one of the videos that talks about, and it's called, you know, inauguration. It's a critique of the inauguration fashion, and it's very entertaining. I like the host a lot. But one thing was, there's a Ralph Lauren kind of sweater that he was wearing that has the American flag, and that's another thing that I think is going to be happening with fashion for spring summer, is that, and this actually kind of it resonated with me, because I was visiting my mom recently, and her neighbor had an American flag with an eagle on it in the front of their house. And I had a very unconscious knee-jerk reaction when I saw that flag and saw the eagle, because I immediately thought that it was a declaration of an extreme belief. And it made me very introspective, because it's like, okay, why did I have that knee-jerk reaction seeing an American flag and an eagle? Those are the symbols of my country. Why did I flinch? Why did I feel so cringy about it? And it's funny, in the video down below, the inauguration roast video, he's wearing one of those very popular Ralph Lauren knit sweaters that have an American flag, and he goes, I know this looks controversial, but this sweater looks good on me. And it dawned on me, why do I have to defend wearing my country's colors or symbols? And I'll just come out and say it. The reason that I have a knee-jerk reaction is because you have very extreme people with the American flag painted on their face and supporting the leaders of communist countries. I have watched videos where they say, oh, well, Putin's cool. The way he does things is cool. So I immediately associate my country's symbols with extremism like that. And that upset me. And what I thought of is, for spring in fashion, is that I'm gonna start wearing my colors, and I'm gonna take back the symbolism of my country. I'm gonna make it mine. And, you know, it's funny, there's a scene, if you've ever seen, it's an old movie, but if you've ever seen the Kevin Costner movie, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, there's one scene where he's in the forest with the merry men, and Little John's going, well, they've taken all our money, they've taken all our food, how can we do this? And Kevin Costner as Robin Hood said, by God, we take it back. So I'm not trying to sound extremist here, but in spring, I'm going to be wearing my country's colors, but I'm gonna wear it with the impression of what my country's morals mean to me. And that is democracy, that is freedom. And that's where we honor our three branches of government. You know? 3 branches of government. And it's crazy. I saw a senator the other day who said, we shouldn't have 3 branches of government. We shouldn't have the Senate, the House, and the executive. It should all be one. If someone could please call that senator and let them know that the 3 branches of government are judiciary, which are the judges, executive, which is the president, and the legislative, which is both the Senate and the House. And you can, here on YouTube, look up Schoolhouse Rock, 3-ring government. It's a great video. It's kind of sad that someone's elected to office and doesn't know that. But in my vein of wearing our colors, and this was actually really inspirational, in the summer of last year, summer of 2024, and I'll put the video down below. When I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed by the news, I like to watch this. Billie Eilish wore also Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren seems to be the very, I guess, when you think about it, Ralph Lauren did a lot of the jerseys for the U.S. sports teams in the Olympics, so that makes sense. But Billie Eilish sang "Birds of a Feather," which is a beautiful song. But it's funny, when I looked at the lyrics, it is a song about obsession in love, which and all of us, it's hit the number one. It's played everywhere, and I love listening to it. But Billie Eilish did a fantastic live version of it for the Paralympics in 2024. It was back in July, and she was on a pier in California, and she was wearing this great Ralph Lauren jersey that had the American colors, but it was more kind of like a diagonal. And just like we were talking about, like coastal prep being kind of stripes, I haven't been able to find that I keep calling it a jersey, but a polo shirt. But polo shirts have been very popular. It's very preppy as well. If I ever found a stripe like that secondhand, I would totally go for that. And I think it's just important at this time to know that this is your country too. And if you decide to wear red, white, and blue, you do it. And you do it with the understanding of what those symbols mean to you. But it was a beautiful performance, and it was for a good cause. It was for the Paralympics. And so, and it was just, it's a great video to watch, because it's like, no politics, no fear. When you see her wearing our colors, it's like, okay, it reminds me of what it is to be proud of my country's colors again, to not have those symbols, warped to mean something bad. So, and in that same vein of kind of patriotism, I had mentioned before, I think it was in the spring fashion video on this channel, about suffrage, about women's rights or equal rights, and what it is in with the suffrage movement, women wore white to represent, equal rights. They also wore a lot of purple and gold. And the gold is kind of like, gold kind of goes back to, there's a symbol of Columbia, Columbia holds the torch. She wears like a white toga. And what it is she's a symbol of freedom. She leads people to freedom. So to wear all white and to have gold is really, and purple is really also representative of both equal rights and women's rights. And I think you're going to see that a lot. That's going to be kind of playing in also with a lot of the political themes that are going on. I'm going to post one video down below that was really beautiful. It was also just gave me a little bit of hope and inspiration. What had happened was back in the 70s, the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, was submitted to be ratified, to be put, to be turned into, to be added to the Constitution. And what happened was a Congress at the time set a limit. I think it was like 3 or 5 years that said, okay, we'll ratify it, but you have to get 38 states to sign off on it before we'll add it to the Constitution. But they gave us a time limit. They gave, I think it was only like 5 years, so we only had until like, I think 81 or 82 to ratify it. And of course, we didn't get enough, there were not enough states that ratified it by that time. And then it wasn't until like a couple years ago that Virginia, just out of the blue, over the decades, different states ratified it, but we didn't have 38. And by a couple years ago, Virginia was the 38th state. They said, go ahead and do it. And that means that we met the quota. And the video I'm going to post below is the video footage of the state house in Virginia when it was ratified. And the reason why is that you're going to see all the women wearing white with, sashes that had gold and white and purple. So just to have the background where you can see it. And it's a heartwarming sight. You see women and their daughters and their children, it's like, but that's unfortunately, it did not. Congress a couple years ago said we're not extending the time limit, so we're still in limbo with it. but that's what the color white means. The other thing is Cobalt Blue, like the really deep, bold blue, is going to be very popular for spring. It is almost kind of a royal color blue. Also, of course, bright red, like deep red. We're a couple days, Valentine's Day is this week. One thing I've really noticed is a real like lacquered leather kind of red. I've seen this with like purses, and again, I always say if you're going to do metallics or any special type of leathers, do it with accessories, because that's the best way that you're going to get a lot of wear out of it. A lot of leather has chemicals in it. A lot of patent plastic is has chemicals in it. I actually found a card holder that I bought secondhand that is that shiny red, and I just liked it, and it was bought pre-owned, and again, it was kind of a rare find. I didn't see very many of them with the little embossed C's on it, but that was kind of a Valentine's Day. And then also in the vein of Valentine's Day, that bridges into the spring colors. A lot of spring colors that you're going to see are pastels, which I know florals for spring, groundbreaking, but pastels are really on the forefront, in particularly powder pink. Also, the real pistachio, kind of mint green, and butter yellow. Butter yellow kind of plays into the women's suffrage, colors as well. But it can also just be a nice spring Easter color. But a lot of the pastels. Now, the Pantone color of the year is Mocha Mousse, which is really kind of a warm brown. But as we're coming out of winter, I'm seeing a lot of neutral colors like gray and chocolate brown, like a real dark brown. And what I'm kind of seeing, which I think is a neat trend, is kind of a transition. I'm seeing a two-tone where, like, if you wear gray with yellow or brown with pink, I'm seeing a lot of brown with pink. I actually got a necklace that's secondhand that had brown and cream and pink in it, and I just think that's really beautiful. That's kind of like a nice little bridge from winter into spring, and it just makes it kind of easy to get away from the duller colors and to get into the brighter ones. Now, one other thing that you'll see, since we're talking about like bright colors, is you are seeing makeup, and this is something called there's a trend that's going on Pinterest called aura makeup, like AURA, and I'm gonna post a video from Justine Leconte. And I love watching her videos. She is a designer of fashion, so she just explains it so well. And every year she posts, it's like one of her favorite things to do, to look at the Pinterest trends and talk about them. But the Aura makeup is very soft makeup, and it almost looks like really 80s makeup. Like I remember in the holidays, I talked about my 80s toys growing up, and I used to love Gem and the Holograms, and it was, kind of a rock band doll, and she always had that wild, the wild rocker makeup from the 80s, but you're going to see that in a really soft way. I think that's not only a bridge from the 2010s. The 2010s, you saw a lot of kind of pastel, like you saw a lot of blue shadow. And I know that sounds so funny, but if you watch like Drew Barrymore and the Charlie's Angels that came around in the aughts in the early 10s, you'll kind of see that. The other thing I'm going to see is, I think, and again in that vein of like 80s, 2010, you're probably going to see a lot of stencil makeup. I actually had a picture of what that looks like, that, it's not as harsh as it's not face painting that you would get at your Renfest, but it's very soft. It's like you put a stencil on your face and just brush a little bit of shadow into it, and it causes, and I have a picture of it. I couldn't find it. I think it's one of those magazine clippings that, I talk about a digital dark age all the time. It seems like I have actual hard copy images of what I'm talking about that I can never find. I can never find what I'm looking for. AI is crap. You're never going to find the image that you're thinking of from a 2008 magazine that I kept. But I will post it on Instagram as soon as I find it. So just check out my Instagram, and I promise. But if you can use your imagination, just more soft kind of images like stars or something like that. One of my favorite channels here is Cassie Thorpe, and she actually did it too, where she had a little bit of gold on the inside. Like, I see us getting kind of dramatic with the makeup, and I know that seems a little bit strange for, why would you, I know why would an eco channel be talking about that, but it's a good way to use up. I always talk about, like, if you watch my makeup video, I talk about all the time about how you get those color palettes with really wild shades that you never get a chance to use up. The best way to be eco-friendly is to use up what you've got. And so if this gives you an opportunity to actually wear, or, and it can be little accent, if you have a 9 to 5, you don't have to go real wild with it, but little accent makeup looks very, very pretty. And I myself, I have some yellow eyeshadow from when I was Detective Pikachu from a couple years ago that I was really looking to use up, and I might get an opportunity to do that. So that type of makeup trend is good. That does also kind of bridge into corporate cool. There is another trend is back to work, but instead of a couple years ago, of course, blazers, big boxy blazers, like boyfriend blazers were the huge thing. Now blazers are getting more tailored. They're getting more nipped in at the waist. They're a lot more structured in both the shoulders and in the waist. Also, I think with, CorpCore or workcore is that it's getting a little bit more relaxed. It's not that, it's not the 1990s X-File look like Scully, bulky 90s kind of workwear, and it's not your traditional, two-piece suit. I think it's getting a little bit more work casual, but still professional. And I'm all for that, because I really do think that's how you inject your style. And that it does look, again, it looks a little cosplay when you do it that way. And this kind of bridges into the last thing that is, and this always been on the back of my mind, and I never knew of kind of a gentle way to say it, but there is no gentle way to say it, is that when you are discovering yourself and discovering your fashion, and again, I have videos that talk about how to find yourself, plastic surgery is really something that comes into play with that. I think it's becoming very common for young people, young girls particularly, to be influenced to have surgical procedures really young. And I personally feel like it's a little bit hypocritical, because I feel like, just like you said, God made me the way that I am with the features that I have. And absolutely, if something really bugs you, it is your prerogative to do what you want to do with your own body. But I see a lot of people who are still very young that haven't really grown into their features yet, like at 16 or under 19. Men are not fully grown, or even mentally wise, until they're 28, and most women have not really grown into both their features and their mental state until they're about 25 or 26. And so you jumping to make decisions about having rhinoplasty, or I had a friend who thought her ears sticked out, so she had cartilage cut from the back of her ears to make them lay flat. And if you look at Cindy Crawford has big ears. You don't notice because her hair is always so big, but if you look at a picture, if you Google Cindy Crawford with a ponytail, her ears stick out. I've had friends who are Asian who want to do the eye lift thing. They feel like their eyes look too almond or not open enough, so they'll have the same thing done. Or what I'm seeing, and again, this kind of plays into the administration that you're seeing, is something that plastic surgeons literally call Mar-a-Lago face. And what it is it's cheek implants, it's chin implants, it's Botox, it's stretching your face back, and you can tell. And it's crazy that I'll look at pictures of people that I don't really like too much, but I will even think they looked prettier before. Why did they do all of this garbage to their face, and paid money for that? Because it's funny. I'll even post a video down below by Mina Lay. She just moved from New York to California, and she just went to a gathering with one of her friends, and she was immediately approached by a plastic surgeon saying, "Hey, when are you ready to do this to your face?" And she literally asked the question, "Why? Do you think there's something wrong with my face?" And he was just like crickets. But that's how superficial we've become. It's like, okay, and it's hypocritical, because you got these big shots talking about grooming young women. Grooming young women also pertains to, dysmorphic ideas of their body not being attractive the way that they were made, the way that they're born. Right? Convincing someone that you have to live up to some kind of, aesthetic of what femininity looks like. And I can also promise you, when I went to college, I did a project for my women's studies class that talked about subliminal messages in advertising. And it's interesting, all of the advertisements I saw were selling to men, not women. And it had these women in very, really kind of disturbing kind of visual positions. The other thing that it kind of projected was there's always, if you look at the timeline of women's history, in the 1700s, having a broad forehead was seen as being noble, and women used to pluck their hair, literally really far back, where my hands are, all bald. Imagine having a bald spot, back there, because you want to look like a noblewoman. The other thing is wedding dresses. There were no such thing as a white wedding dress until probably the mid 1800s. You wore green dresses or colored dresses. Wedding dresses didn't come until much later. The other thing is there's a painting that shows a woman who looks like she's pregnant. She's not pregnant, but it was a sign of fertility to look like you had a belly. Imagine being in a time when having a pooch would be seen as attractive. And I can also say from my personal upbringing, I was a child of the 80s. Everybody wanted to look like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, and that was big boobs, no butt. I always call it the orange on a stick. That's what people wanted. They wanted straight blonde hair, tanned, humongous breasts, and no butt, just straight. And I'm not built that way. I have a small waist and I got a booty. And that did not become acceptable until about the aughts, when J-Lo made it okay to have a big backyard. And then the Kardashians took the baton and ran with it. But when you Google this, you'll see a lot of celebrities that regret doing all this to themselves. I'll put a video down below. There's a plastic surgeon who looked at pictures of before and after of Ivanka Trump, and he's speculating, he can't say for sure, but he speculated about what she had done, including cheek implants and then later a chin implant too, because if you do one without doing the other, it can make you look dysmorphic. It's almost like once you start down the path of plastic surgery, you can't stop. You have to do more. And you'll even see it if you in the Kardashians theme. Black China said that she's having all of her fillers dissolved and she's having the cheek implants removed because she said she felt like she looked like Jigsaw, like that villain from that movie. And that's what happens. And it's very hard to reverse once it's done. It's kind of like having a tattoo. I always thought about getting a tattoo, but I think, okay, as I age, there's going to be upkeep, It's not like the silicone implants are going to stay there forever. And it's going to get out of balance. And I love Dolly Parton to death, but she even admits it. She says it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. And she has to upkeep the plastic surgery that she's had. The other thing is, and this is all politics aside, but Bella Hadid, who is a beautiful model, She had her mother's nose. She even said it. I have the shape of my mother's nose. And at a very young age, I think 16, she had nose job, and she regrets it now. And she can't reverse it. She's like, I wish I had kept my nose. It was a sign of my heritage. I'm proud of my heritage. And it just makes you think. So one of my final trends is just be yourself. Do not cave to pressure. And whatever you believe, and this is not me saying that you got to be on one side of the aisle or the other. I'm just saying be you. Be you. You know, don't do something to yourself that you're going to later regret. And it did actually get me thinking too. I have a very bulby nose. and it's funny when I look at pictures, my mom complains about it too, because she goes, you've got my nose, I have the bulb, and we both get it from my grandfather. But he had a bigger bulb. We have a very feminine bulb. But, after seeing all these pictures and being like, oh my gosh, if I had the money to change it, I wouldn't. And if I ever have a baby someday, I want to look in their face and know that I recognize the features that they got from me. I also just want to be proud of who I am and what I look like. This is exactly how God made me. God, the universe, whatever you believe in. This is how I was made. And, if I have imperfect teeth, if I have a bulby nose, I've got the cheeks, I got a small chin, I'm not going to get a chin implant to even out my face just because that's what's popular. So, the other thing that's kind of weird too, and I'll try to find the video, is that a lot of girls get nose jobs because they think their nose look big on selfies. But the problem is that's nothing wrong with your nose. That's what they call a fisheye camera. That's the eye of the camera that's bent because that's how the camera is made. So you have women who are altering their bodies to fit in to be for a selfie. Does that sound normal to you? So again, last final trend is please do not cave to the model of what is they're telling you to be. Don't cave to that. You don't have to. You are perfect exactly as you are. And if you need to practice some self-talk or just look at it or really think about it, okay, why do I want to change myself? The other thing is don't do it too young. Give yourself some time. I always talk on this channel, if I want to spend, I always say if I want to spend more than $100 on something, I'll sleep on it. If you want to change your nose, don't do that at 16. I promise you, making yourself wait will first off give you the clarity, give you the critical thinking that you need. You'll be a little older, a little wiser. Also, ask yourself, am I doing it for myself or am I doing it to fit in? Don't ever dim to fit in. You are beautiful just the way that you are. But I hope everyone is doing well. I thank you for checking out my channel. I hope some of these trends are helpful. I know this is a different type of video. But I promise you next time when we come back, we'll be talking about some more environmental things, and that there's a lot on the plate that we're going to need to talk about. So I thank you so much for tuning in. If it's your first time here, I would be very honored if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.